What's weird is I think in theming this episode in the way we did, um I really love the way we themed this one, but I feel like we got like two very different ends of like one is explicitly like an origin story for a character, and the other is like it is something so reliant on the fact that you need to know who that character is beforehand. Welcome to R2-BD, friends. My name is Joey. As always,
And I'm Jacob.
my brother Jacob. Yes, absolutely. This is a show that has no structure, and so we're changing the structure next time. But for now, enjoy a regular episode of R2-BD, I suppose. I guess as regular an episode as you can get with this show.
Has any episode ever really had structure outside of the fact we talk about three things?
That's fair. That's fair. And even that hasn't always been true. So,
You know what? You're not wrong.
I just realized I forgot to grab my red pen that I usually use to check off my notes as I go through this. But you know what? Structure is non-existent. So fuck this pen. Fuck my red pen. Fuck everything. Here we go. This is the Star Wars show where we talk about a movie, a comic, and a book. And next time we're gonna change that. So don't worry about what I just said. The structure is non-existent. So
anyway, welcome to our Star Tours podcast.
Star Tours podcast. We really love the Disney ride Star Tours. I've been on it like twice in my entire life. You, I believe, far more.
Especially
recently.
Especially recently. Let's just say far more.
I think the last time I was on it, I was like 12, and I think that was that had to be pre Disney purchase.
It was still the old Star Tours.
Well, I think the purchase happened in 2012, and I think I was last there, like right before the acquisition happened. So I don't know. Anyway, I don't know what this episode is. We structured this episode around a set of lovers in Star Wars that I like to think most Star Wars fans love and enjoy reading and watching and seeing things about. Han Solo and Princess Leia Organa Solo. I think sometimes people throw another name in there because I forget. Something to do with her mom, I think, or her Alderaan mom, her Alder mom, if you will. Anyway, so for our movie today, I think there's a pretty obvious choice in theming it around that. We're talking about Solo, a Star Wars story. Me rewatching it for, I forget how many times I've seen it now. I've seen it a fair few times. I think only
seen it. I've seen Solo. This is only the third time I've seen Solo.
Yeah. More on that later, of course. Today, comic-wise, we're also talking about the comic book miniseries Princess Leia from 2015, written by Mark Waid, with art by Terry Dodson, I believe. Terry Dodson did the art on this, right? Yeah, Terry Dodson. Fantastic artist. And you chose our book for today. What did you choose for us?
The Princess and the Scoundrel. I don't remember the authors off top.
Beth Revis. I forget. They definitely said in the audiobook if it was Revis or Revis, and that information, I just did not retain that information. It did not stay in my brain. So it's either Revis or Revis. I want to say Revis. That sounds right. I don't know.
Sounds right to me.
Anyway, but I think so you chose Princess and the Scoundrel, and I had been thinking about covering the Princess Leia comic series for a while on the show, and I was like, okay, well, that could be nice to pair together. And I was like, if we're doing a solo Princess Leia thing, we should do a solo Han Solo thing. And so there's a pretty easy movie choice for that. It does mean we had to rewatch Solo, a Star Wars story, though. So I think we'll start off on that today. I remember when this came out, we went to see it together, and I think we both kind of hated it. Maybe not hated it. Hate is kind of strong.
Theaters, and it was not an enjoyable experience. I think.
Yeah. I think we. Okay, so this is maybe a weird time to bring up this point of the conversation, but do we know too much about the media we consume these days? I was talking about this with my friends back when we did the discussion on the latest season of Doctor Who on my friend Brian's channel, and something we said was like I think we just like know too much about things going in. Like we're just too aware of how a film or TV show is made before we watch it. Like that conversation came about because Russell T Davies has been kind of a fucking idiot in interviews recently when talking about Doctor Who, and so like we hear him talk like a fucking idiot about the show he's making, and it's like, I don't know, we actually enjoyed the episodes, but maybe I think a lot of people let those interviews and that talk about the show from a behind the scenes perspective affect their view of the show as they knew it, or as they viewed it. And I feel like we may have a similar situation on our hands, or may have had a similar situation on our hands back when we watched this for the first time, because obviously big behind the scenes drama regarding Solo's Star Wars story. It was originally supposed to be directed by Phil Lord and Chris Miller, wonderful directors, worked on the Lego movie, and I believe the second one as well. Great comedy duo, and they were hired to work on a Han Solo movie. And we know for a fact that there were, as the public statement would have you believe, creative differences. Those creative differences mostly culminated in Phil Lord and Chris Miller making the film a bit funnier than I believe Disney had originally intended, letting their actors play around a lot more with the script and letting them improvise more, and also possibly their biggest crime, and I believe the one that got them kicked off the film, was taking too long to make it.
I definitely remember hearing that being a big non-stated reason,
which is absolutely insane. That's the one that bothers me the most. But the point is, they were taken off the film. They brought in Ron Howard, esteemed director Ron Howard, good friend of Lucasfilm, who I learned actually in reading up for this before we recorded this episode, that Ron Howard was actually offered to direct Phantom Menace back when they were making that, and he declined it. Blows my mind. But he was brought in to direct it. And we have this. He reshot about, at a rough estimate, I believe I heard somewhere around 70% of the film of what they already had.
Which to me just feels wasteful and like taking too long to make it like to a new level.
Yeah. Now, of course, we talk about a situation like that, and I think our minds often flash back to something like, say, the Justice League situation with Zack Snyder and Joss Whedon. I don't think this is exactly that, but fairly similar situation, I think. But I would like to, if we can, for the most part, ignore those behind-the-scenes drama stories, and I think just talk about the film as it is, as we have viewed it. I've rewatched it. You've rewatched it. I just rewatched mine earlier today. I think you watched yours, 2 nights ago or something?
2 nights ago.
Despite being always the easiest thing to consume for one of these episodes, we always end up doing our visual media last for some reason. But whatever.
I will say, I'm obviously, to take the background out of this film, talk about it as a story, sure, I could do that. Story has its own issues.
Mm-hmm. Very much so. Very much so. I think something that we were talking about before recording this just a few minutes ago, actually, was that this film kind of has that weird... depending on what I'm talking about, I always refer to the other thing. So if I'm talking about the other thing, I'll say, oh, it has a Solo problem. But if I'm talking about this, I'll say it's a Batman Arkham Origins problem. You see this, and I think in a lot of origin stories when we do prequels like this, where famous character is famous for certain reasons, and it turns out that every single thing that is famous about them comes from this exact one event. And it's annoying. It's really annoying whenever it happens. I think in the Batman Arkham Origins example, it's, every famous Batman villain you ever met. Batman met also on exactly one night. He met them all in one fell swoop. And
in Solo, take everything Han Solo says in the first 3 films you see him in, and just one movie.
Yeah. Literally,
you also have to roll back character development he makes in that one film.
Yeah, literally minus Jabba the Hutt, who still gets mentioned at the end, who he's
going to go meet at the end.
Yeah, so, and here's the thing. I remember watching this and being like, you know what? I know, because they planned a trilogy of Solo films, which, first off, insane.
You know what? I had forgotten they were going to do that.
They wanted to do that because this was supposed to be sequel bait. It was supposed to be like the second film we're doing Jabba the Hutt. And I believe there's a far stronger film and story to tell in focusing a Han Solo movie on his relationship with Jabba the Hutt than whatever the fuck this is.
This is every main thing that Han Solo tells Luke Skywalker in Episode 4.
Yeah. And it's not just things that he's done. It's things that he just has on him, like he got his Millennium Falcon in this adventure. He got his gun in this adventure. We find out how he made the Kessel Run. It's all of that. We find out how he met Chewbacca. It's everything. It's everything you ever learn about him. He meets Lando here. It's everything. One can be rightfully annoyed by that. I think with time, as of the time of recording this, the film has been out for what are we talking here? 6.5 years?
I'm gonna say it's about 6 years. My gut told me just off my head.
And I think I've softened on it over time. I definitely have.
I will agree, but to a lesser extent. You watch more frequently than I do, of course, for reasons on reasons.
I mostly just do big mega Star Wars marathons, and that's on me. Exactly. That's my fault.
I don't do that. I saw the film in theaters once. I saw the film for like a family viewing or something.
Yeah, and then yeah, most recently for this. And I don't blame you, but I think it's weird. My example I always think of is Doctor Who's The Happiness Patrol, where I think it was a story I didn't like when I first watched it, but each time I rewatch it, I liked it a little bit more, to the point where now I absolutely love it. I'm like, oh, Paradise Towers, amazing story, but it took me about like I think 10 viewings to get to that point. So, yeah, but I mean, Solo, I like it just a little bit more each time, I suppose.
I think Solo just has some genuine structural issues, is all.
Yeah. But again, a weird part of me does still kind of wish we'll get to see that Jabba the Hutt story someday. Speaking of, unrelated, I know, but as of last night, as of the time of recording this, did you see our Jabba the Hutt news?
Actually, I did not.
Oh God! So Jeremy Allen White, I don't think you know who that is.
I don't.
He stars in The Bear, the show The Bear.
I know of The Bear, yes.
Okay. Lead guy from that. He is apparently, and I say apparently, it's reported by like a bunch of major news outlets. It's confirmed. It's happening. He is playing, and we don't know in what capacity, but he is playing Rada the Hutt in the Mandalorian and Grogu movie coming up.
No.
Yes.
No.
Yes. I can't get over that. It's absolutely insane. First off, insane, high-profile, prestigious actor Jeremy Allen White is playing the son of Jabba the Hutt. Oh my God!
The character lost to canon after like one movie appearance, unless I'm blanking on something that he had
a very minor, I think, season 3 Clone Wars appearance with, I believe, was it Hunt for Zero? No. It was whatever one set up Hostage Crisis. I can't think of the name of it now. Where Cad Bane visits Jabba's palace. I believe Rada's in that scene, I believe. But that's like his only other appearance.
I don't remember that, but you have a better memory for stuff like that than I do.
I believe he's there. But yeah, he's like never shown up again since. And I love that. I love that we're gonna get him again. Absolutely insane. The fact that Rada the Huttlet, would he still be a Huttlet? I don't know how Hutts age. The fact that he's gonna show up he's gonna have more canonical film appearances than Ahsoka Tano, I think is like my favorite statistic that one could possibly utter. Absolutely insane. Let's talk about Solo. So we are a very focused show. Okay. So tell me, because it's been a while since you last rewatched this, what changed for you in viewing this again? How'd you approach this? Any specific opinions that changed? Lay them on me.
Okay, because I've had the least viewings and the most time between them.
Mm-hmm.
I would say I softened up immensely to the acting. The acting is where I feel I softened up the most, because I was like, it's like I understand what's obviously like. Who played Han Solo in the film? I can't think of their name off the top of my head.
The one Alden Ehrenreich,
Yes.
who, great actor,
I was like,
genuinely great actor.
I was like, this isn't a perfect recreation of like Harrison Ford, obviously,
Well, that's the
but
thing.
I feel like this is a believable enough at this point, like young Han Solo, especially early on.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't want like a recreation of Harrison Ford because it's a younger character, whatever. I think my big problem with it is I have a hard time reconciling this Han with the guy that we would eventually see in A New Hope, mostly
Oh, sure.
because like, and I think it's this unfortunate problem of being too aware of what Star Wars is and who Han Solo is. Because in a weird way, Alden Ehrenreich is playing a young Han Solo by way of like Return of the Jedi, Force Awakens, a Han Solo that has softened up over time. And we never really get to see Han put up the barriers that he has in A New Hope, that this hardened scoundrel that needs to be broken through, that needs to believe in something again.
Because I don't want to cut you off, but I did want to say I agree with you. I feel like Han Solo ends this film too much like a hero, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, because Han's a bad Han's a bad guy. Like, let's be real. Like, he should Han should be a bad guy.
Think about the way we're introduced to Han. Han is in a bar and shoots first. Like,
well, I mean, even aside from the Greedo thing, because the Greedo thing is a big point of contention. Because I mean, without getting into the Greedo thing, a very minor quibble about the Greedo thing is that the reason that George Lucas changed the Greedo thing is that he was worried that Han seemed too much like a bad guy if he shot first, and it's like, well, that's the point. That's the character you made, George. That makes no sense. But even putting that aside, like his actual like introductory scene when he's talking to Obi-Wan and Luke for the first time is like, this is a guy that like does not actually care about the cargo that he's taking with him. He only takes it because of the money. This is a guy that like that you see like right off the bat doesn't really have a strong moral standing, and should be willing to take this job strictly because he's being paid a shitload of money, and that money is not even necessarily for him. It's to get somebody else off his back.
And I feel like this young version of Han, yes, I could see this young version of Han turning into the smooth talker he does, because that's at least believable. That aspect of the character is very on point.
Mm-hmm.
Like, take the scene with Drayden Voss towards like the middle of the film, I guess, middle, beginning, and like after he screwed up the coaxium deal.
Yes. Yeah.
Like, he's like, oh, what's some way to fix this? There's this, there's that, and Han's like, what if we just get unrefined, and like it's an idea that I could see older Han Solo having,
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
What's the new angle to get money?
Yeah. Well, I mean, even then, like, I think that's very early Han too. I think that makes a lot of sense.
By the end of the film, I feel like so much shit has happened to him at that, like, towards the end. Like, yes, this young Han Solo could end the film a little heroic, giving away the coaxium. Sure, I could maybe buy that as part of like that as part of like that before the end barriers up. Would go up.
Mm-hmm.
Think about what happens right at the end. His pseudo mentor betrays him. Girlfriend leaves him, and he still has to win a ship.
Mm-hmm. By the end of the film, all of Han's allies end up seeming more villainous than him, and not in like a he's the protagonist. We should root for him because of that. It just strictly in a, he just genuinely seems like more of a heroic figure than the people around him do. Killing Tobias Beckett should almost be seen as this really bad thing for Han to do. I think, at least that's the way that I read it, at least.
I'm with you. I feel like it should almost be that he wasn't going to betray Han, and Han started seeing the worst in people by the actions around him.
Because even then, for Tobias Beckett, we see a lot more honor, I think, in that character, specifically in his dedication to his crew that he had before he met Han. I think he's Again, this is just the way I read it. Other interpretations are, welcome as well. But the way I read it was always just that, like, yeah, I always saw him as a more honorable character than Han. Han killing him in the end shouldn't really seem like a good thing. And Han certainly shouldn't start crying over his dead body at the end, which is always a scene that I've always had a huge problem with.
That should have been if we were making this a trilogy and the idea was, oh, we're not building up Han, we're not doing Han's whole backstory one fell swoop, even though we did 90% of it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if we were going to build up his barriers and turn him into the scoundrel we see in episode 4, we should have started that journey.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we should have had Han, not maybe coldly, I suppose, just we should have seen that barrier start to go up.
Yeah. And I guess in a way, like, what the film is trying to say is this is the reason that he does put up those barriers, but we never actually see him do that. We see him kill his mentor. We see him try to forget about his girlfriend. We see him cheat Lando out of his ship, but he never really puts up that wall. He never really. There isn't a moment where he becomes the Han Solo we see in A New Hope. And I think that is a problem because, yeah, sure, you could say, oh, yeah, they plan to do more movies. That would have happened eventually. I still think that is a flaw, even in the first part of your trilogy. If this were to be a trilogy, because then your film isn't telling a complete story. I think one of the biggest strengths of certain TV shows that I really love is that they never try to act like they're going to get more. They're never going to their story shouldn't hinge on getting more seasons. There should always be a sense of finality within each season, I believe.
Sure, I 100% agree. Like, this is, yes, I know Solo was made by Disney. How rare does it, at that point in time, how rare does a Disney film flop so hard that they just don't make more?
Yeah. And also, I mean, that's also just a larger statement on corporate Hollywood, and just the slightest sign of failure equals complete failure. And, like, I don't know. I think Solo's failure, I think, has very little to do with Solo itself, unfortunately. We're just talking about on an audience level at this point.
Sure.
It came out a mere 5 months after The Last Jedi did, which was at the time the most controversial piece of Star Wars media probably ever.
Probably. That sounds like a fair assumption to make.
Just to make ourselves clear, we are big Last Jedi fans here. But also, I think there's that coming out 5 months after that, released in a weird time slot because Disney was always dedicated to the Christmas, December big holiday Star Wars family film release, and for some reason they went for May, which is also weird because May was historically the Star Wars film release month back when George was in charge of releasing all of them. So again, just weird choices all around. There was a lot of bad faith in the Star Wars brand at the time in general. So I don't think it has anything to do with Solo itself. Although, again, still not a fantastic film. I think it's like an above average film. I can enjoy it for the most part. It's troubled though. It's troubled.
It has genuine story troubles, and like you said, maybe we know too much about going into films anymore. Because do you even remember when the film was coming out? We didn't even really see advertisements for it, and we got a bad sense just from that fact alone.
Yeah, it was weird. Yeah, there's this weird sense of Lucasfilm almost being afraid to release it. So those kind of things definitely affected it. And I think back to that point of I think we just knew a little too much. I think that's something that we could also just try to do better with nowadays. So I don't know. I also say this is a big lever of behind the scenes content, but put them out afterwards. I don't know. I don't want to know everything about a film, the production of a film going in. I don't know. That's why I loved slight tangent. That's why I loved Long Legs with Nick Cage. So much of the promotion for that film was just, you do not know even what the main character of this film is going to look like. And you should be terrified by that. Go see it for yourself, and then we'll tell you all about it. Which is very cool. Very cool idea for promoting a film. weird tangent, I know. But let's talk about what I did actually like in this movie. First off, Ron Howard is a great director. Obviously, Ron Howard has a great, great long history of being a great director. There's a great snappy style to this film. Ron Howard,
I'm a fan of the style of the film. Absolutely.
Yeah. Ron Howard being a longtime friend of Lucasfilm means he gets the Lucasfilm style. He gets what Star Wars should feel like. This is the director of Willow, for God's sake. Like he's wonderful. So yeah, great style to this. I love a lot of performances in this. Again, I'd like Alden Ehrenreich for the most part. He's a great actor. I think in a weird way, he would almost make a better young Indiana Jones than he would a young Han Solo. Maybe that's just me. I don't know. He's great. Donald Glover as Lando is beautiful, perfect, chef's kiss. Everything about him I adore. Yes, impossible to hate.
That was honestly one of the best parts. Like his performance, though, is like a standout in the film.
As far as I know, there's still a Lando project in production with Lucasfilm. I don't know if it keeps going back and forth of like, I think at first it was supposed to be a movie, but then I think it turned into a show, and now it might be back to movie. I forget which.
I remember hearing it was like a Disney Plus series.
Yeah. But who knows? Either way, I want more Donald Glover Lando.
Also, whatever show or movie, it has to be called the Calrissian Chronicles.
Calrissian Chronicles, yes, that would be amazing. Which we also talked about a fair bit back in our Shadow of the Sith episode of R2-BD. Because there were some Calrissian Chronicles references in that, and I enjoyed that. He's great. I know we talked about Tobias Beckett a fair bit, but I love Woody Harrelson in this movie. He's fantastic. Great character. I've also just been watching a lot of Woody Harrelson lately because I recently rewatched the Hunger Games movies, and he's fantastic in those as well. Woody Harrelson is just a great actor. Yeah, he crushes this role. He plays this wonderful mentor figure to Han. That just, I don't know. I enjoy seeing a lot.
I thought he was really good. Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, you brought the coaxium heist thing. I love that whole scene. That scene is fantastic on the train. I guess on the monorail system they have.
I call it a space train, but same difference, I suppose.
Yeah, it's cool. It's just a cool scene. Tragic too. Oh my god. How miserably everyone goes down in that fight. It's hard.
For a moment, I thought Charles Soule took over.
For real, or Kevin Scott, like, yeah, for real. I also always forget that Rio, the little monkey man thing, is played by Jon Favreau, creator of The Mandalorian. I guess that would be his. Was that his first ever involvement with Lucasfilm? It might have been. Yeah, or I forget. Mando might have already been announced as a thing at that point. I forget. I don't know. Whatever. Oh man, trying to think of else. I mean, I think Dryden Voss is a really shallow character, but I do like Paul Bettany's performance as him. I think he's very fun to watch. Lovingly villainous. But I do wish.
I thought he had the right kind of air around him.
I mean, he does kind of scream. He does kind of scream faux villain. Unfortunately, clearly, what the film actually wants to do is set up Kira as a villain and make Tobias Beckett our twist villain in the end. And so Dryden Voss is meant to be this fake, menacing presence throughout the film that we're supposed to be afraid of. And Paul Bettany's wonderful. He plays it up wonderfully. I wish there was more to actually latch onto as a character there.
I will say, I watched the film. When I was watching it, I seriously got a really hearty laugh after Beckett takes the coaxium and they everyone ducks, and he's like, "I think it's time to reevaluate our relationship."
yes, he's great. He's a great performer. I always enjoy watching him in things. I don't know. I wish he had a better role here. Is all I'm trying to say, I guess. Also, I always forget. Is there a crystal skull in Voss's chamber somewhere?
Thank God. It's his first scene when they go into the meet, when it's just Beckett, Han, and Chewie after the heights have gone wrong.
Mm-hmm.
You could see what looks like a crystal skull on the left-hand side of the screen when it's his face and part of his torso and stuff, when they're sitting on the couch.
I've never seen any confirmation of it being a crystal skull, unlike that one Clone Wars episode where the crystal skull shows up, or that one Clone Wars episode where the Ark of the Covenant shows up. I love the canonical existence of Indiana Jones artifacts in the Star Wars universe.
I don't know which one happens first. Presumably Star Wars.
I guess. Yeah, a long time ago and all that. I mean, I guess they found their way to Earth somehow, and I guess the Crystal Skull aliens really are aliens. So
I mean, here's the thing: if there was ever a Star Wars, if there was ever a Star Wars project that just canonically said these are the Crystal Skull aliens, they'd be like, sure, why not?
Yeah, I mean, we know the ET aliens also exist in Star Wars. I forgot about that for a second. Wait, yeah, that's right. The ET aliens also exist in Star Wars. Fuck. Crazy. But also, does this mean if Wat Tambor had the Ark of the Covenant on Ryloth, does that mean that God in the Indiana Jones universe is an alien as well?
I mean, I suppose.
That's cool as fuck.
I mean, I guess there's nothing that could say that anything that Indiana Jones uncovered and had like a big spiritual element wasn't just alien tech, but now we just sound like ancient aliens. So
yeah. Also, we can bitch about all of Han Solo's famous things coming from one story all day, but I don't know. I love the meeting with Chewie, and I love watching Han and Chewie's relationship develop. If that was like the focus of the famous Han Solo thing to come out of this first movie of a trilogy, like that should have been the focus, that should have been it. Like I don't care about the fucking Kessel Run. I don't care about how he got his fucking gun. I don't care about how
especially just a gun he had.
That is such a random fucking thing to throw on there. It's like, oh god, I hate it.
Here's the thing: if I were picking two things to make the focus of a Han Solo origin movie that I wanted to make a trilogy out of, like that as part of my mental plan for this whole thing,
yeah.
I would have focused on Chewie and the Millennium Falcon.
Yeah, and I guess, but when you say Falcon, you have to include Lando. But also, I feel like you could have just like made it easier by making Lando someone that Han already knew.
Right? It feels a little weird. They have this super. Not tense.
Well, because then it also does that other unfortunate prequel thing of like. Random meeting between two characters has to be built up as this massive thing, but it's just two guys meeting each other. That's all it is. It's your fucking
in the grand scheme of this. They met at a bar because one of them was needed for a job.
Yeah, but the movie needs to be all Han's going to meet Lando. It's a big deal, But that's just not okay. So I need to bring up this argument because it's something that we often talk about, and I don't think we've ever brought it up in a recording before. But we joke about how, while the sequel trilogy was coming out, everyone wanted Supreme Leader Snoke to be Darth Plagueis from the novels.
Sure, right.
And there's that scene in The Last Jedi when Rey and Supreme Leader Snoke come face to face for the first time, and we always say, we were like, if in the middle of his ranting and monologuing, he was like, you are a foolish child, blah, blah, blah. Don't you know, ... I am Darth Plagueis. Everyone in that room would fucking turn at that guy and go, fucking who? Because nobody knows who the fuck you are. It's not a big deal. So that's the same feeling I get here, is all I'm trying to say. What's up?
The movie theater might have exploded, but the people in the room don't care. They don't give a shit.
Yeah. God. Just to my understanding, I think there's also a Star Trek movie that does that. I think it's one of the J.J. Abrams ones, but I don't know what or how. I just know that when I brought that up to someone once, they were like, "Oh, it's like the one J.J. Abrams Star Trek movie." I was like, "Oh no, stop! Don't say anything else," because I haven't seen it yet.
Don't tell me no.
I was like, "Don't say that yet, please don't." But yeah, no, I mean, I guess also that makes a lot of sense because Last Jedi is the one sequel movie not directed by J.J. Abrams. So, but no, it's like seriously, that is exactly what that is. It's like it is just two guys meeting. Han and Lando have no clue who the fuck they are. I get the build of the Falcon, the framing of the Falcon, that first reveal of that, fantastic. I love that shot.
Totally there for that. That's fine.
Yeah, the Lando thing just makes no sense.
This is the side tangent, but because we meet Lando and playing a game of Sabacc as someone who has now played Sabacc and understands the rules pretty well.
Oh, you have a Sabacc deck. That's right.
That was Lando, obviously, no way he was ever going to win without cheating. Han had almost a perfect hand.
Mm-hmm. Oh, really? Okay, cool. Nice. I'm glad I know that now. So we've been avoiding a pretty big character in this film.
Are you sure?
We have not talked much about a love interest in this movie in the form of Kira. It's played by Emilia Clarke. There are a lot of really great actors in this movie. A lot of really great actors in this movie. Emilia Clarke is there as well. And I get her role in the story. I really, really do. And I feel like if I can bring it once again back around to Han putting up these barriers and wanting to see him actually become the character we see in A New Hope, I feel like just losing Kira in the first place, like in that first scene, should have been when that happened. Like, right? Like, that's what I feel, at least.
Here's the thing. I will defend that at the start of the film when Han is separated. I could buy on not building any barriers and just wanting to figure out how to get out and come back, like in a manner that he could essentially whisk her away.
Yeah, I'm now blanking on how many years passed though between the time. Was it 4?
I said 3. As someone
3 years, okay.
Said 3.
Okay.
Like I could buy Han Solo. I'm not even Han, just Han because he's not Solo yet.
Mm-hmm.
I hate that too.
That's another fucking beautiful prequel thing. Of
I could
characters
buy
getting
Han,
their name from somewhere. But
I could buy Han and no last name doing that. Like that is something I could believably buy at that point of essentially someone who on the streets after presumably their parents died, because Han talks about his father slightly to Lando, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
When like after he's kicked out of the co-pilot, just before he's kicked out of the co-pilot seat. Yeah, that's right.
Mm-hmm.
It's like after becoming an orphan somehow, like Han I could see that at that point is what I'm saying. I could buy Han no last name, making that like I'm no barrier declaration yet. Mm-hmm. I feel like we should have seen something come up after she willingly left him instead of being forcibly taken away.
Yeah, exactly. But instead what we get is we have to do our 3-year time jump and see Han still being a dumbass kid that doesn't know anything, and like I don't know, I could respect it. I would be able to understand it if the film just said, "Cool, that's the moment. He lost his girlfriend, kid became a man," you know. Or I guess if you want to word it that way. And now he's here. Instead, we're still developing that character even after that massive time jump. And even then, by the end of the film, he's still not that character. I would like to focus a bit more on Kira herself, though, because I realize I'm turning a conversation about Kira into a conversation about Han, and I shouldn't be doing that.
You know what? That's fair. We could talk about her individually. She has her own character arc that, if I'm honest, doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me personally.
See, I don't know. I don't mind it. I like how she comes across in the film as someone that did actually move on from Han, but Han didn't. Oh God! She was able to move on. I always enjoy seeing her have these like grander ideas of power and ambition. I do want to read all apparently a shit ton of comics she's appeared in since. I think Charles Soule is mostly the writer on those. But yeah, you see her like ascension through the ranks here. You see her overthrow Dryden Boss by the end. You see her get directly associated with the leader of the Crimson Dawn, and it's like, I don't know. It's good. I enjoy it. I like seeing it. It's a solid character arc.
I do think she's a solid character. Don't get me wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm with you. I could follow the steps, like especially because like amusingly we get a pretty decent mysterious backstory between being forcibly away from Han to he helped me out.
Yeah,
that's all we know, at least based off my memory from the last couple of days.
Yeah,
I don't think we ever find out how specifically. What do they actually like each other?
You mean like the present? Do they like each other?
Yeah. Oh, no, not Han and Kira. Han and Kira and Dryden Voss. Like.
Oh, okay, gotcha. I mean, I don't think that was ever the idea. I think he was always kind of using her. And she very much, and she in a weird way, I think she was also using him.
I I think the end game was always his death. Let's be honest.
Well, yeah, exactly. You know, actually, and I'm going to turn this into a conversation about Han Solo again. I'm also, there are just barely any female characters in this movie. I can't be a fair feminist reviewer right now. But no, I can't. But also, while we're talking about Kira, I have to talk about another thing that really fucking bothers me about this, and that is Kira's place in Han's life. I don't mind the dice thing, because the dice thing was a symbol, I think, artificially created by Disney when they wanted to make that a symbol of Han and Leia's love in the sequel trilogy. So I don't care about that, really.
My God, I just remember though when we saw the film, when we saw the film in theaters, I remember thinking that stupid fucking dice.
Yeah. But the thing I do mind, actually, is the closet scene on the Falcon. You know what I'm talking about?
There's only one closet in the Falcon that you could refer to. The fucking
closet scene. It's literally the Han and Leia first kiss scene from Empire Strikes Back with a totally different woman, and apparently Han has done the exact same thing before with a totally different woman. That I suppose believing in Han as, like, you know, someone that would kind of hit on anyone, I suppose, sure. But I don't know. I would appreciate the relationship between Han and Leia feeling a bit more special, to make the Empire Strikes Back moment a bit more spontaneous, and Han being a bit more romantic, if in his awkward way in that film. I don't know. I think it works there.
Instead of almost something you could maybe infer as almost a practice routine of someone he just
yes, like, that's exactly it. Yeah, that's exactly it. That's exactly what bothers me about it. So, ugh. Want to talk about L3?
Also, this is unrelated, but the hangers on the Falcon are so dumb in design.
They're space hangers. They're space hangers, Jacob. They're space hangers. Let them be space hangers. I think we should talk about L3 briefly. Who's a character that we also kind of hated when we first saw it, and we kind of softened on since.
I still have an issue, but it's not with them anymore specifically.
I like my comedic relief droids.
Here's the thing: I don't mind that she's a comedic relief droid. I do mind that they play off that she's very passionate about droids' rights and how they should be liberated as a joke.
That's fair. I could see that. I mean, that's interesting. Do I bring up Star Wars droids? Do I bring up Star Wars droids? I suppose by saying that I already have. Do you ever see droids? Do you ever see droids? The 1985 hit cartoon Droids, starring Anthony Daniels as C-3PO, because he won't let anyone else do it.
I'd say, has anyone else ever actually played that character?
I suppose there's an interesting point to be made there as well, because the show Droids is split into like 4 sort of story arcs, if you will, where in each one, 3PO and R2 are owned by a different master, and so there's this idea when you're like sort of like between arcs or starting a new arc in that show, where 3PO and R2, at least from 3PO's dialogue, you always get the sense that the way the show is treating them is almost slave-like, because they feel lost without a master. They feel like they do not exist the same way they normally do if they are masterless. So I don't know. I suppose there's a point to be made there, and also I guess that it's more a problem on the part of Droids, the show, than it is on any conversation relating to L3. But
right. It's just sort of tangentially related.
Yeah. I don't know. It's just kind of what it reminds me of. It's like, I don't know, how much do you really want to analyze the status of fictional alien robot servants to humanoids? You know.
Like the farther this conversation develops, the more uncomfortable it becomes.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, I don't know. Do you want to treat droids like a slave allegory? Because then all of Star Wars becomes problematic, you know. So I don't know. It's not a bad idea for a character, but yeah, I guess, you know, if you want to take the slavery thing a bit literally, then I guess you could view L3's stance on that as good, and the jokiness of it as bad. But also, I just don't think I looked that deeply into it personally. Because at the end of the day, No, go ahead.
I'm not saying I have like a hard opinion on the matter, but like I'd like to think when a character says something bluntly, like especially like a droid in Star Wars, like a droid can be funny. Like 3PO can deliver funny lines.
I am also
but they're usually
I am also the world's biggest K2SO fan. So yes, droids are very funny.
droids are funny. Droids can be funny, but droids are also in Star Wars pretty literal most of the time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So when L3 is like, this is my firm belief, I'm like, okay, cool. For the sake of this viewing experience, I'm with you.
Yeah.
And then the rest of the world, Lando broadly included, just kind of goes with it.
Could we also talk about Lando as a droid fucker?
I still want to know how it just works.
Yeah, I seem to remember also there was some kind of weird at the time of the film coming out, some kind of weird pushback by like a certain sect of the internet as treating Lando as pansexual, basically just to simply include droids as part of his sexuality. And like, I don't know, was he ever not?
I mean, I'm just gonna put it on the table. I'm just putting it on the table and saying, if droids were never meant to be sexy in Star Wars, why did they look the way they did in Clone Wars for the Clone Trooper holo casts?
That's true. Those are that's true, because they are explicitly like meant to be like sexy TV presenters in a weird way. It's weird. It's really weird. And also, I mean, on Lando especially. I mean, I don't know. Was he ever not that way? I think. That's my big LeFou is gay in the live action Beauty and the Beast rant. Is that like, I don't know, was he ever not? Like, really look back at that. I don't know. I don't have a hard time believing it. Also, it makes for some really great comedy. I love the the fact that L3 does not reciprocate those feelings. Just treating it, just treating
wanted to.
Yes, treating that relationship like an actual sentient being relationship, I think is really cool, and also speaks a lot, I think, to L3 as a character, which is cool, because we obviously brought up the whole her believing in droids' rights kind of thing. So like, I don't know, if we're gonna start treating our droid characters as more human, then I think that's a step in the right direction, and also again just makes for some great comedy because it's just fun to see. Oh man, note wise, ooh, man, any big things? I feel like there's a big thing that I really glossed over here, isn't there?
We kind of jumped all over the plot of the film, so...
We jumped all over the place, but I do want to talk about, if we can, briefly, the one and only Darth Maul, if we can.
I never want to not talk about Darth Maul.
Let's talk about Darth Maul. Oh my god. First off, I love how they made him in this film. And I don't mean like how they made him look, although he does look great, of course.
Of course.
I love physically how they did it for the sake of the film. They took the two all-time great Darth Maul performances, Ray Park's physicality as the character and Sam Witwer's wonderful voice from the Clone Wars, and literally married them. It is Ray Park's body and physicality with Sam Witwer dubbing over the lines. It's great. There's nothing to not love there. It's a fantastic performance in the brief time that he's there. I just love the
perfect amalgamation. Like, if you were someone who watched, say, all of Clone Wars, like us, and still liked the physicality of a Phantom Menace, this is like, there's no difference. You don't look at that and go, something feels wrong here. It all feels exactly right.
Yeah, exactly. It is Darth Maul. The only other thing I think is voice-wise. Did you know that actually in the few voice lines that Darth Maul has in Phantom Menace, that is not Ray Park doing the voice?
I did not know that.
Yes, there is another actor who I'm blanking on the name of now, that did the lines in the Phantom Menace, and he is actually the only really forgotten Darth Maul actor in this appearance in Solo. Because I mean, nowadays we just don't think of that voice for Maul. Nowadays it's Sam Witwer, because Sam Witwer just created the definitive Darth Maul when he played him in Clone Wars and Rebels. So
honestly, he is. It's almost like, and I don't know how many people would actually say this, that Clone Wars and Rebels are really, really important to Star Wars canon in the end.
Yeah. Almost. It's almost like that. Oh man, that was a lot. I think that was one of our longest visual media discussions we've had on this show so far. um, I think we should stop this now because I'm sick of talking about it. I'm not actually. Realistically, I could talk about this movie for a long time. But I think for the fact that we're doing this in a larger format show, saying the show has a format is a statement that I made. I think we should actually go on to our next thing for today and talk about Princess Leia by Mark Waid, who we both have read a fair bit of recently, with the DC event Absolute Power. He did a great job on that. And also art by Terry Dodson, inks by Rachel Dodson, which I recently read because they've been doing the DC Finest collections. They did the art on the early arcs of Gail Simone's Wonder Woman. And so they're great artists, obviously. I really love their art in this series, especially.
Yes. The art is especially good in this book, too, of course.
Yeah. But yeah, let's talk about it. Let's talk about Princess Leia. Something that I really appreciated about this pretty early on is that it is about not just immediately taking place after A New Hope, but also directly dealing with, let's admit it, probably the weakest plot point from A New Hope, and that is that an entire planet gets fucking destroyed and nobody fucking talks about it.
Yeah, I will agree.
It's the worst thing about the movie. Like, in my opinion, it's the worst thing about the movie. The Empire genocides an entire planet with family and friends and people closely related to one of our main characters in the goddamn movie. Leia has this huge reaction to it. Obi-Wan says... has the amazing chilling line, "A million voices cried out in terror, and then were silenced." And then nobody talks about it, including the main character that this directly affects. Nobody ever talks about it. And so, I think smartly, Mark Waid said, well, let's actually make an entire miniseries about that and talk about what the destruction of Alderaan means to Leia, means to the rebellion, means to the galaxy as a whole, I think. A very smart idea. I really, really love that.
Yes.
So yeah, there are also some great insights into how Leia deals with that. Because first off, what Mark Waid kind of decides on in sort of marrying the idea that the destruction of Alderaan was really important, and also A New Hope doesn't really acknowledge Alderaan after it gets destroyed, is that he uses that towards Leia's characterization in this, and that is that Leia is sort of pushing her feelings down. She's trying to not really acknowledge it, because if she talks about it, it shows weakness, and she is a leader. But this creates this fantastic idea that Mark Waid has about how other people view her. Then they call her the Ice Princess as this like little like nickname around the Rebel base. It just makes for some really great little character moments, including from other people that were from Alderaan, because destroying Alderaan obviously doesn't mean that you destroyed everyone that was ever from Alderaan. There are plenty of others. Namely, our main other character, or our secondary main character, I guess, for this miniseries, in the form of Yvonne, who, first off, is so meant to look like Luke Skywalker. This is just meant to be like someone that explicitly reminds Leia of Luke. Done on purpose, not just on an aesthetic level, but I think also in her ideals. Leia is often a wise leader, I think, but Luke is this much more human side of Leia's greatest traits as a leader. And so we see that in Yvonne, I think, here. Yvonne is a really, really interesting character. She is also from Alderaan and has been working with the rebellion, and has those same feelings as many others do. Leia is the Ice Princess. She is this person that doesn't really... that had her entire home planet destroyed and has not shown any care or love for it, or even showed any sadness in herself.
As far as like the people of the rebellion almost seem, it's almost like she almost doesn't care that her parents are just dead.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
because there's that panel of like Yvonne just looking at statues, and it's like, and people are around people, and there's some dialogue, if I recall correctly, where they're like, man, it looks like she cares more than their own daughter.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, so good. You know what I also really appreciate that Mark Waid includes in this, that we never really see in A New Hope, is the idea that people were there for more than just Leia presenting some medals to some fucking guys. I really have to appreciate that Mark Waid dares to say, and then they all went home. No, what actually happened is Leia delivers this really nice speech afterwards, that purposefully avoids the topic of Alderaan. But again, I really, really love that. It's like, I don't know, what do you actually assume happens when Leia gives them all medals? They all turn to the giant ass crowd, and they all look out. The credits roll, and they're just like, "Oh well, dinner's in the oven," you know. Oh god, I love it.
That's good.
Oh man. Also, interesting point about the fallout from A New Hope. There's a bounty on Leia's head. The Empire is rightfully looking for her because this is all another thing that also I think often gets ignored about Leia's status in the original trilogy is that this was someone that was part of the Senate, and in A New Hope, the Senate was dissolved, and this person that was part of the Senate played an active role in destroying the Empire's battle station. And so, the Empire wants Leia. There's a price on her head. Plays a big part in the miniseries. And so the rebellion is very protective of Leia. They do not want her going out. They're
like, literally, for your own safety, please just stay here.
Yes. But in that wonderful, wonderful Carrie Fisher way, Leia does not decide to stay safe, and she leaves. There's this great scene where Luke and Wedge actually try to stop her as she's leaving them, and she escapes with Yvonne on an Alderaan ship.
I'm
really
still
cool
trying to sort out where the projection of R2-D2 giving the projection of Leia is coming from.
Hang on, I have to open up the book. I have to open up the book again because it's been a while since I read it now.
When Leia leaves, there's a projection of R2-D2 giving a projection of like Leia saying, "Hey, I left, but like I'm gone already."
I think that's okay. So you're saying, oh yeah, R2 is the projection. Okay, so where is that projection coming from? Oh yeah, huh? I don't know.
It's something I think about very occasionally. It's not like a big plot point or anything. It's just something when I saw it, I was like, where is that? Where is the R2 projection coming from?
Yeah. Huh. Interesting. I totally forgot about that. Huh. Also, they escape. I have a note here that says Minister Solo, and I forget what that is.
Oh, that's when they land on
oh, that's right. Okay, that's right. Leia calls herself Minister Solo. That's right. Okay, that's fun. I forgot about that. Very fun moment. I also really liked some of the flashbacks we got here as well with Leia and Bail Organa. Very cool stuff. I also just like how the mere act of Leia going to leaving the rebellion, or at least escaping it for the time being, is sort of what immediately causes this bond in Leia and Yvonne's relationship. Yvonne starts seeing her very differently, and there's also this idea that that Leia does not want to be seen as a princess, as a leader. That Yvonne wants to still address her as her princess, her queen, whatever. And it's like, no, there's no Alderaan. I'm not the princess of anything. What are you talking about? It's really cool. Just a great little touch. Also, interesting point. They go to Naboo. And naturally, I think on Naboo, there's a stained glass portrait of Queen Amidala, and just a fascinating moment where, and here's the thing, continuity in Star Wars is a lot, and I think specifically,
I think that's the understatement of the universe.
I think okay, so like there's. I went through this weird moment where I was like, oh yeah, I was like, oh, that's really cool. Leia's thinking about, wait, no, she's not thinking about anything. Nope, that's not right. That's not true. She's not thinking about anything. She's just looking at a picture of Padme Amidala. Okay, cool.
Seems to move to look at her?
Yeah, this is like Mona Lisa thing. It's very cool stuff.
I like to think that's an early sign of the Force calling on her personally.
Oh, that's a cool idea. Yeah, I get that. Yeah, it's cool. we get Leia throwing down a lot here. We get but essentially, what the bulk of the miniseries then decides to focus on is that there are Alderaan survivors hiding out on Naboo.
And other places, but namely Naboo to begin with.
Yeah, namely Naboo. And I really love that. I really love that idea to make Leia's mission sort of post New Hope about finding a way to not protect her planet anymore, but protect its people. Very cool idea. Which is something that you also kind of have to, I guess, think about a lot when it comes to like marrying that with Leia's dedication to, if you will, to her quote unquote like actual people, because Alderaan is not technically her home. It's not her family. You know, these are just the people that for almost all of her life she thought was her family and were her people. And so, losing my train of thought because ironically there's a train outside. But no, literally lost all train of thought. Holy fuck. Oh yeah, Alderaan was not her actual home. And so part of me would love to see like a version of Leia that thinks back on this in a time like after she finds out that these were never her people, were never truly, I guess, her people. She only thought they were for so long. I don't know, just an interesting idea that I don't know if it was ever like followed up on in any way. I'd love to see Mark Waid in particular tackle this, but who knows? We get a lot of like the Empire following them. There's this whole plot of the of one of the people in Leia's sort of Alderaan hideouts club. Her sister is what is it? Tace, her sister, is part of the Empire, and Tula, this one that's part of the Alderaan runaways, is sort of like contacting her throughout this time. And so she doesn't know that her sister is working with the Empire, and so she essentially leads the Empire directly to them. Cool plot point. I like that a lot. Oh, also, Ninem is here. How great is that? Love seeing that.
That was a nice. That's a good cameo in big old air quotes.
Good old Ninem. Love him. Well, he's there for a fair bit. So
that's why cameo is in air quotes.
Yeah, I could totally see them. They're in my mind's eye. Let's see. I think I covered a lot of my notes here already through covering.
Leia gets like a whole bunch of Alderaanians. They're like trying to find like a new home planet or maybe just a home mothership. I don't remember the exact ending of that particular line of reasoning.
Mm-hmm. Leia does give herself up to the Empire at one point
to save the sister who was with the Empire because through story shenanigans they were found out of each other.
Yeah. Yvonne goes to rescue Leia. There's also just this great idea of like it's not just about like, you know, saving as many as you can. It is Leia saving every Alderaanian. I don't know. Trying to save like every single one that does survive. If they do survive, Leia will save them. Just a cool idea. Love that.
Leia tells the one from the Empire is to what, do better, I think.
Yeah, but still intends on saving her, which I think is really, really cool. Great idea. There are other Alderaan ships that they call on to join the fight. I fucking love that moment. Very cool stuff. There's just this idea that the Empire, in finding out that this many Alderaanians survived, are trying to finish off Alderaan. I think is like exactly how they word it. Horrifying idea.
Yeah. Just a wee bit.
A little bit. I do love the way a lot of this miniseries wraps up with Leia again saving as many as she can, saving all of them pretty much, getting them out of there, finding a new home for them, and finding her way back to the rebellion, and leaving Yvonne as sort of the leader of the Alderaanians at this time. Really, really great idea. But yeah, a lot of this story I think is about like legacy and like the and what we pass on to like the next generation, because like Alderaan may be dead, but like Alderaan still survives in this really cool weird way. There's also, you pointed out that Yvonne is like wearing Leia's dress from the throne room at the end of the comic, which is just, it gives off big Lando wearing Han's clothes at the end of Empire energy. Weird stuff. Also, again, all the effort made to make Yvonne look like Luke at times. Like, it's not just the fact that she wears a very similar, like yellow jacket, like Luke wears throughout the entire story, but also even like right at the end here when Leia's talking to Yvonne for the last time, like that all black almost makes her look like Luke in Return of the Jedi, which I think is just really cool. And just a nice little touch. I really like that.
Also shows like just in that towards the end, like in that panel like that you were referring to, shows how much taller she is than Leia.
Oh yeah. Well, Carrie Fisher was a short queen. We know this.
That's true.
Legend Carrie Fisher. You know what? Actually, before we move on to our book, can I just take a moment to love Carrie Fisher just for a little bit? I don't know. I know whenever I talk about my love for Carrie Fisher, at least off of recordings, I know I never brought it up here, but I often think of her roast of George Lucas when he was receiving a Lifetime Achievement Award, which is just
that's great. I love that.
If to anyone listening, if you have not seen that clip, just look up Carrie Fisher roasting George Lucas. It is one of the greatest rants that both perfectly in that Carrie Fisher way is hilarious, belittling of George Lucas, and yet honoring him in the greatest way you could possibly imagine. It's a rant about him that essentially arrives at the conclusion that George Lucas, despite all of his faults, and there are a great many, is a fucking artist, and a damn good one at that. So, I don't know. It's great stuff. I love it. And also just, again, so funny in that Carrie Fisher way. She was amazing. I love that woman. And I miss her greatly. All right, let's talk about our last thing for today. Our book that you chose for us with The Princess and the Scoundrel by Beth Revis. Okay, so first off, I want to talk about the cover. I love the cover. I forget who it's done by. Is there a thing on the inside here about who did the cover? There might be. I could be
While you're doing that, I just want to say, because normally we're like, so why did we pick this book? I just picked it because I was like, oh, Han and Leia get married. That should be fun.
Yeah. Elizabeth A.D. Eno is apparently who did the design. So cool. Good for her. It's a great painting. I think I talked about it. Did I talk about it on our last episode when we said what we were covering? If not, I'll bring it up now. It reminds me, the cover, I think it reminds me a lot of like classic early Legends EU books. A lot of like the old covers for like the Thrawn trilogy. It just reminds me a lot of that really great painted style with like that great focus on something bigger in the middle and like other characters and scenery that permeates the bottom layer of the cover. It just looks so nice. Got this gorgeous painted style to it. You can actually also find, as I was doing research for this book, you could also find just like the solo PNG art of Han and Leia holding each other in their wedding garb here. And it's lovely. I'm going to use it for the thumbnail for this video. So you saw it there at the very least. But yeah, I think it's very nice. It's a lovely piece of art. And,
it is.
Yeah,
it encapsulates that moment in the book really well too.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. Which, here's the thing. While I did still greatly enjoy the book, I think the first like quarter of it was like the best thing about it, unfortunately. It does kind of make the rest of the book seem just not as good because the wedding happens within the first 100 pages, and I think, I don't know, we could have dragged it out a bit more in a weird way.
But here's the thing, the rest of the book is fine.
Yeah, that's fair. So yeah, Princess and the Scoundrel. It is the wedding of Han Solo and Princess Leia. But of course,
honeymoon.
Yeah, but of course, if you have seen Return of the Jedi, which I hope you have, there's the matter of Han and Leia weren't even like officially a thing or proposed to be married at all by the end of that movie, so we have to do that first. This book picks up exactly at the end of Return of the Jedi. It is an early portion of the book that focuses on Han and Leia's thoughts about the end of Return of the Jedi, which I think is really, really cool.
It's also very smart too, of course.
Yeah. Leia especially, I think, who has some very interesting thoughts on the end of the film. Mostly the fallout, in that like she learned so much about herself on that journey that seeing Luke especially just go off and not be part of the celebration and like go to burn his father. Their father, which Leia is really struggling with a lot throughout this book. Luke going off to do that and not being with them leaves Leia with a lot of unresolved emotions, which I really, really love, and I think is something that it's something that I think that I think really drives the early decision in how Revis decides to write the proposal for marriage from Han here. There's also this great idea in Leia's resentment towards her late father that she does not want to know his last words, which are entirely about her. You know, the last thing that Vader ever says to Luke is, "Tell your sister you were right." Brilliant. Oh, fucking, how good is Return of the Jedi, man? How great is Return of the Jedi?
Return of the
I love
Jedi
that
is
movie.
so good, but that is
So
this is the fallout of Return of the Jedi.
Yeah. So fucking
At
good.
some point, on Mothma is on the moon.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't remember when that's supposed to happen.
But
there's celebrations just all around. Normal, like, we did this celebrations, and they're great.
Mm-hmm.
And everyone's, like, starting their phases up for, like, the next set of, all right, we could assume the Galactic Empire will disintegrate. How do we slip in?
Yeah. Also, speaking of, it was weird. I read this after I did the Princess Leia comic series reading, and it was just kind of weird to read two stories back to back where Leia has a price on her head for some reason. Because now the Hutts have a price on her head because she killed Jabba the Hutt. And God, how great is Return of the Jedi! I'm going to say that a lot throughout this. Okay, I may have also said this on R2-BD before. I don't know if I have. But my favorite Star Wars of all time. My favorite Star Wars movie is Return of the Jedi, but specifically my favorite Star Wars ever is the first 45 minutes of Return of the Jedi. I think no bit of Star Wars that has ever existed so perfectly it captures the sheer joy that I get from watching Star Wars. There's no greater sense of adventure in Star Wars. No greater creativity. It's a beautiful first 45 minutes. And I get excited watching it every time I do. There's something so perfect about that whole Jabba segment. I love it. Anyway, totally unrelated, I know. How great is the proposal scene? The proposal scene is fantastic. It is Han deciding in his wonderfully rash way that he wants to settle down, and I don't know how to. It's so weird. It's so weird to talk about my thoughts on this particular scene because I think. Trying to think how to word this.
I'm just waiting to hear how you want to word this.
There's something so specific about the way the scene is worded that I think makes it hard to talk about. Because it is okay. This is the problem with criticizing anything, or writing a review of anything, or making a review of anything. Is that something that is so purely emotional like that is hard to put into words because it is so purely emotional. It is a feeling that is strictly based on a feeling and not something you can really quantify. I don't know. I love the scene. Is all I'm trying to say. It's really lovely. I don't know. I don't know if you have any similar thoughts to that, or anything more to add on the proposal scene.
The proposal scene itself is really well done because it comes like narratively for like take the movie, take this book. It's like at a high point still, like where we're just coming off of the adrenaline of everything that's happened, and a lot of the characters that are a lot of the characters in Han and Leia's like internal thoughts, because that's who the book keeps switching between. Like their individual thoughts on the situation at hand.
Yeah.
At a given moment. They both have thoughts of like people are making relations that they probably won't keep, or they're going back to relationships that they had to put on pause for some reason or another. And like they both have very similar thoughts to that, and then Han proposes, sort of capitalizing in the best way possible for him and Leia on that same feeling. Yeah.
I think, it is a purely emotional moment that I think catches both Han and Leia by surprise. Han is the one proposing, and it catches him as much by surprise as it does her.
Han literally has, you know what, fuck it moment. I've already said it.
Yeah, exactly. No, I love it. There's also, I want to talk about that moment at the end of Return of the Jedi. That great fucking moment when when Han and Leia see the Death Star blow up, and Han is like, "Well, shit, everything's going back to normal now, isn't it? You know, you're going off with Luke." And Leia's like, "It's not like that." He's like, "Oh, sure, it's not like that." And she's like, "He's my brother." And Han looks at her with that fucking with that fucking face that purely says one thing and one thing only: that this book acknowledges.
Oh God, yeah.
You kissed your brother, didn't you?
I mean, there's like a whole great hilarious like middle bit between the proposal and the wedding, because the wedding is just this whole beautiful scene.
Mm-hmm.
And there's like this nothing but hijinks in between the proposal and the wedding.
Honestly, I would have. Okay, I liked the later half of the book, but I loved this beginning especially. Because again, I would read an entire book like this. But yeah, there's a fucking scene where Luke and Han talk to each other, and I was like, "So, Leia told me that you're her brother," and Luke and Han both kind of look at each other. It's like, "We're never gonna talk."
And he's like, "Do you remember on Hoth
after the Wampa attack?"
And Luke's like, and Luke, I think, literally says, "Let's never talk about this again."
Yes, it's so good. I'm glad there's something in canon Star Wars that actually acknowledges that. I really am. I actually am.
That's in the midst of a bachelor party gone terribly wrong.
Yes. So much
also,
fun.
just wanted to mention before we get to the actual wedding, just before we talk about that at all, when Leia tells Mon Mothma about the fact that Han proposed, she effectively goes, "Sit down and tell me the tea."
Yes. Well, at first the reaction is more like, "That fucking scoundrel, you dumb bitch," and then Leia's like, "No, but I love him," and she's like, "All right, I guess if we have to gossip, we can gossip." You know. Wonderful moment. I also just, what's really lovely about the actual proposal though is I just love how excited Han is about it. He just gets so excited about being married. He loves it. He's so excited to tell all his guy friends. It's lovely.
Yeah, Han is Han's a joy in this book.
Oh, he's so lovely. I think Han is so in love with the idea of being with Leia. And Leia is Leia. Leia is who she is. She loves Han, but she is so dedicated to her life, her work. Her life does not stop when she falls in love or gets married. Leia Organa is Leia Organa, or rather, I guess Leia Organa Solo.
Han spends a lot of the rest of the book dealing with those feelings.
Yeah. That's what a lot of the rest of the book is about. When of course we get our actual marriage. Also, so again, we spent a lot of the early portion of this book of focusing on Leia's hatred of Vader and some fairly awkward conversations between her and Luke. But I love, this is the beauty of prequel storytelling, I swear. Luke talking to Leia, and there's this moment of reflection on Alderaan, which I really love as well. And something that Luke says is, and I quoted it here in my notes, "Those we love are never truly gone," which is literally the whole Last Jedi thing. It is no one's ever truly gone. It is that connection between their family that binds them, and it is their memory of those people that will keep these stories alive. It's gorgeous. I love it.
Then during the wedding ceremony, Leia has this, during the Leia section, because it splits between Han and Leia pretty frequently at that point.
Mm-hmm.
It has Leia almost envisioning her mother putting on her wedding sword, which is such a fucking metal idea.
I need to know more about Alderaan.
You pass on a wedding sword. That's amazing.
Yeah, of course, as you do. But yeah, wedding is lovely. I love the idea of the wedding bands that they wear. I also just love the setting of the wedding, being on Endor, and I just love the clothes you see them in on the cover are literally the clothes they wear to the wedding. It's nice. It makes for a really lovely, scenic, easy to visualize moment. And it's exactly what you want out of this really lovely Star Wars book. Afterwards, though, Mon Mothma has to convince Leia to go on a honeymoon. Because again, Leia being Leia does not want to take away from her work. There's
I
important work
don't
to be
think
done
she
after the fall of the
actually
Empire.
I don't even think she ever actually convinces Leia to go on the honeymoon. She convinces Han to trick her into a honeymoon, if I remember correctly.
That's true. That's very true, actually. Yeah, she has to basically convince them to go on a honeymoon, or try to at least, because Leia can't be seen as more cold than she already is, which actually, in a weird way, ties really nicely into our comic. Like, people are also still kind of hating Leia for not being more
There.
emotionally open with them. Yeah, being more emotionally open with them in an important way. And so, if everyone finds out Princess Leia just got married and then went straight back to work, it would kind of, and I guess lower her approval rating. People would hate her even more. So, in a way, the honeymoon is a PR stunt. It's a PR stunt for Leia. For Han, it is exactly what he wants.
And for Mon Mothma, it is absolutely just a PR stunt.
Yeah. There's a nice scene at a reception party. There are a lot of descriptions of Lando dancing that I just can't help but love.
He's dancing with them. By the time Han gets Leia to leave the reception, he's dancing with like 3 women.
Yes. King that he is. King. But yeah. But then it's honeymoon time. We go on the Halcyon, which is a ship that I'm unfamiliar with, but I think you know more about, because
I know more about it. Yeah, I didn't know it was in this book. I read a comic trade just because I wanted to. It was Halcyon Legacy, I think it was called.
Yeah,
and for anyone who knows any bad news about Disney World, it was the Galactic Star Cruiser.
Oh yes, that's right. It was the actual thing that the hotel was based on, right?
Yes.
Because I forget, I don't know the details on it. I know there's that big ass like Jenny Nicholson video on it that I've never watched, because I don't know, I honestly just have no interest in it. But there, I know there's like some kind of disaster with that. I forget what it was though. Would you know more about that?
The short version is the hotel just wasn't profitable. It didn't make enough money to sustain it being open still.
Okay, gotcha.
That is the short version of everything you need to know.
Gotcha. I don't know why I made a note on this, but I guess it's just interesting. I don't know. I like seeing weird, simple domestic things in Star Wars. I just wrote a note that says wine in Star Wars. And okay, sure. It was like when I saw cereal in Andor. I was like, oh, okay, cool. I never really thought about cereal in the Star Wars universe, but all right. So there's that. Yeah. I think there's a fairly large like dip in the book then from this point. Like the early parts of the honeymoon before the Empire actually gets involved, then I think are really, really slow.
They are, but I think that's just to establish the various character arcs we're going to finish this book out with.
Yeah. There are fun things though. We get to see Han playing Sabacc, and also Han gets involved in a guy that is that is intent on kidnapping the princess that he is aware is on the Halcyon here, and Han's like, oh yeah, sure, yeah, right, let's go kidnap the princess. I bet we get a ton of money off that. I loved reading Han fucking with that guy. It was very fun.
Like, I really loved that. Like he's like, you have a plan, and the guy's like, oh yeah, it involves like escape pods. They know where they are. Han's like, oh, let's go check it out.
I forget. I have a note right next to it about it. I forget if it's the same guy or it might be a different guy. There's the guy that invented like the Imperial like TIE fighter targeting system here.
It's the same guy.
Yeah, same. Okay, it is the same guy. All right, cool. Yeah. Also, interesting note. There are people on the Halcyon, because this is immediately post Second Death Star destruction, that just don't believe the Emperor is dead, which I think is a really interesting point. Because like, I don't know, I guess for a while it would only be like, hey, the rebellion, those galactic terrorists, they killed the fucking Emperor and they took down the Empire's like greatest point of strength with the Second Death Star, and Darth Vader is dead now too. And I guess for a while I guess there would be people that just like wouldn't know if what this terrorist group was saying was the truth.
Yeah, it's a perfectly believable, and again, I'm glad it's in here, like point of contention a galaxy would have that was run by realistically, all things considered, a stable form of government.
Yeah. Well, I think also like so often with these post Return of the Jedi stories, we so often focus on the establishment of the New Republic and our life after that point. But this is before the rebellion tried to establish the New Republic, so there's this period of time where like they're not the government yet. These are just people that took down an evil government. They are not they have not immediately taken their place yet, though. Mon Mothma and like General Dodonna have like put things in place to get that to happen, but they haven't actually done it yet. Nothing's been established.
And I also like that there are people in the Halcyon and the galaxy in general who have legitimate reasons to be upset with the rebellion, and maybe because Leia's on the ship, her personally. There's like when she's looking at this art gallery on the Halcyon after they've arrived, and after Han's gone to place a buck and then try to send the guy off the ship. He's just observing the art, and there's like this, it's like older couple. I don't remember how they were described in the book. Point being, it's like a mom, it's like a couple of parents, and they're talking about how their son was on the Death Star working his way through promotions, and he was blown up with the rest of it.
Yeah.
And Leia has like some internal monologue where she's like, "No, there are legitimate reasons people can hate me right now."
Yeah, totally. It's a and again, this is also just a larger conversation of like the Empire was just the government. Like, yeah, sure, they're the bad guys, and from a storytelling perspective, we look at them as like, you know, these are just these are the villains of our story.
Here's our villains: Space Hitler and a Dark Wizard.
Yeah, but like the Empire was just the government. That's sure the government's evil, both in real life and in Star Wars, but like they were still the government. It was a way to get a job. It was a way to make a living. Luke's job he wanted in life before he got involved with the rebellion was he wanted to be an Imperial pilot. He wanted to join the Empire because that was the government. That was just a job you could have. That was a way to make a living. And so, yeah, it's an interesting point. Yeah, there are just people that still believed in the Empire for, in a weird way to say it, valid reasons.
Honestly, if nothing else, purely selfish ones.
Yeah, personal ones, very personal reasons, very very human reasons. That I think really resonate. It's just really interesting. I love that. Back to the silly though. Leia finds out about what Han did to the guy, Kelad, I think I have his name as, and just fucking hilarious.
This is after, of course, Han was stopped from sending him off the ship because he was discovered, and then had to name drop his wife to avoid being thrown in jail.
Yes. There are also just like a fair few like arguments that Han and Leia have in like the early sort of portions on like the Halcyon here and towards the end as well. They kind of persist throughout, and all these arguments essentially boil down to Leia's a career woman. Han wants to just sit down, be in love, be a house husband, and love his wife with his pet dog walking around. And they can't really have that. And so there's also I made a note about this because like I think like what Beth Revis is also doing really smartly here is not only getting to write a lovely story about Han and Leia being in love and how they're such an amazing couple, and I love them. You can't help but love them, but also taking the time to marry this with the idea of that giant gap between Jedi and Force Awakens when Han and Leia go through marriage, kid, and eventual divorce. You could see Revis laying the seeds of like what leads to that eventual divorce and that separation. And I don't know, I kind of just want to see a sequel to this where we continue to build out that family. We see Ben Solo and all that. I'd love to see that.
There's a moment earlier on before they're on the Halcyon where like Han's just observing some children, and the droid who acts as like the tour guide, what's their name? Did you write their name down?
I did not.
E3.
I think it was. I did not write it down.
Point being, it's like the droid concierge, if you will, is like, oh, Captain Solo, I see you're interested in children. Do you and the princess intend to have one?
Yeah, it's interesting. Also, on that point, why is I mean, this is a weird time to say this because they're actually getting much better at that in the very near future. But why is the expanded universe so afraid of doing things with Ben Solo / Kylo Ren? I say that as they fairly recently announced a Kylo Ren series. I think it's an ongoing too, coming up from Marvel Comics, which is very cool, and I love to see that. But I don't know, just do more with him. I want to see that shit. Give me all.
I mean,
that.
I feel like there isn't enough sequel trilogy content in general.
Yeah,
Personally,
when like clearly that's the thing that should be expanded on the most in Star Wars right now. Like,
it has the most gap that needs the most filling.
I mean, here's the, if I were to guess, like they're afraid to do more with it because there's always the potential for Lucasfilm / Disney to come around and be like, we're just going to make more movies that take place between this time and this time, and we're going to see it on a movie in a movie or a TV show, and all of those books and comics are going to be non-canon. But like, I don't know, who fucking cares about canon? Just tell a story, and I don't know, it just whatever. I don't care. Who fucking cares? Whatever. Han brings Leia some pie.
Yeah, sure. That's about
I was just trying to find a good little transition from that point, and that was literally my next note is Han brings pie. So
there's he has like a whole box of pies that he takes up to the room.
Yep. It's fun. It's fun. Also, there are a couple mentions of Kira throughout this. At first, it starts as like Han just thinking about her and his past relationships, of course, in relation to Leia. But eventually leads to a moment, sort of jumping ahead here towards the end of the book, where Leia actually tells Han that she met Kira, which I believe, I was doing a little looking into it, I believe that actually happened in a comic, so we're actually referring to an actual thing that did happen, so that's nice. But Leia did actually meet Kira, and it was while Han was frozen, and I think that's fascinating, and I want to keep reading those comics. I would love to see that, but it really is, it's a point on like on someone that knew Han in his very young formative years, and Leia, who knows him now and knows that he's not necessarily the best person, but is trying to be the best for her. It's a great point. I don't know. I really, really love that. So anyway, let's see. Empire. Let's talk about the Empire. The Empire attacks because they know that Han and Leia are here. This also involves I forget the name of the planet. I don't think I wrote it down. That the Halcyon was above at the time.
This is the planet Leia diverted the ship to, right?
Yes, yeah. To meet the Prime Minister there.
Yes. Yeah. Through a nice, clever scene where like Han doesn't know why Leia wants the ship to be diverted from like an asteroid through like a meteor shower.
Mm-hmm.
Han like something done. And he's like, yeah, this reason that doesn't really make sense if you think about it too long. Captain of a big expensive ship.
Yeah, yeah.
The captain all nervous, and then they change course. That leads to another argument, which is hilarious. But I think if I remember correctly, even Leia agrees Han's ultimately right in the end of that conversation.
Yeah. I also have a note here. I forget what scene this pops up in. It's sandwiched between the whole thing about the deep sea divers and the chase scene then. But I have a quote here from the book talking about Leia, I believe, that says her smile turned feral. And I forget what context that was in. But,
oh God, what is the context for that?
I forget. Like I said, it's sandwiched between the deep sea diver bit and the chase scene with the Empire that happens afterwards.
I don't remember what that's specifically referring to.
I don't know. I'm also just imagining an instance in which one could describe Carrie Fisher's smile as turning feral, and I think that's just a lovely concept. So,
it is.
Yeah. Anyway, I did like the idea of the deep sea divers though on this planet. I thought that was just a cool way of like expanding on like how the planet collected its resources and all that. Just I don't know. I like dumb Star Wars world building things like that.
Well, I like this too because they establish it's a planet made of ice, but not like Hoth. Like it's a beautiful ice planet that the Empire is hiding on effectively.
Yeah. Yeah, it's cool. It's really, really cool. Here also in our band of surviving Empirees, we have one character by the name of Senior Commander Alicia Beck, who I believe comes from another book. I was looking into this. One of the, you know how like before each of the sequel movies came out, they would do like a series of books that was like The Road to Force Awakens or Last Jedi or Rise of Skywalker and all that. It was from one of those ones, but I believe it was a book that took place still, I think it was like between New Hope and Empire, I want to say. I think it was was it Smuggler's Run? I know there's one called Smuggler's Run. It might be that one.
I'm familiar with that book title.
It might be that one. I could be totally wrong. Anyway, this is a character that has a past with Han Solo.
And here's the thing, too. The book treats this two ways at the same time, and I was happy about this because I didn't know anything about this character. The book treats it like, from Han's perspective, he knows exactly what their history is.
Mm-hmm.
From like Leia's perspective, then Han lays it out at least a little, just enough that like us, the audience, if you don't know their past, gets like, okay, I get it.
Yeah, it's cool. It's really, really cool. But I also like the description of her design with the whole like cyborg eye and everything. Just really cool. Mm-hmm. Very fun stuff.
Paints a very clear picture, anyway.
Yeah. I do like Han and Leia like on the run then throughout the rest of this. That's actually where we the Kira moment I was referring to earlier. Han and Leia's plan, like you really see like them like work together like as a team, and seeing like their marriage not just being like a their love situation, but like literally just them like being a team together, being one, acting as one, coming up with a plan, using their two very different ways of tackling dangerous situations and marrying those. It's very cool. But yeah, let's see. Oh yeah. I also had this note here that like interestingly, this book being about such being on a large scale and involving the Empire and the Halcyon like this, but also being still a small personal story about Han and Leia. There's no big fight at the end. It's not this big blowout. It is Han and Leia coming up with a plan together, and there being this swift kicking out of the Empire at the end. It's very cool. I don't know. I really like that.
It's swift. There's the proper amount of casualties. It's all good.
Yeah. I mean, kill the space Nazis, of course. But yeah. Let's see. But yeah, we get a great scene with Leia and Mon Mothma towards the end. Mon Mothma just there's this idea throughout the book that, and also I think throughout a lot of Star Wars, that Mon Mothma is this sort of mother-like figure for Leia after the destruction of Alderaan, which is very cool. I like that. I forget why I put this. I'll admit I read this book a few weeks ago now. I have a note here that says Leia and the Force, but I forget what the allusion to the Force was here. Or was it just her contemplating her training?
What are the notes around it?
The Leia Mon Mothma scene, and then the ring being broken after that.
Oh, that's Leia summoning forth demon beasts from below the deep ocean.
That is correct. Cool.
Also, the book never addresses Han having this horrified expression that he never talks about with Leia about.
Yes. Yeah. I do like the little note towards the end. Also, just very very fitting for this relationship. Leia can't cook. So, I guess Han's the cooker there. Or, really Chewie is. Let's be real.
What I love about that is it eventually comes out that Han's been avoiding mentioning the Falcon ever since getting on the Halcyon as to what's happening with it. And he told Chewie to make it homey. And in his mind, that's adding a kitchen.
Yes, I love it.
And in the audiobook, this is, if I'm remembering correctly, section where it's the two narrators going at once.
It's the very last chapter. Yeah, I have a note on this as well. Yeah, they have both narrators. It's Mark Thompson, of course, fucking Mark Thompson, the Star Wars book guy. And I forget the other narrator who does the Leia segments. Let me pull it up quick because I feel like I should give credit where credit's due. It's Mark Thompson and Saskia Marleveld as Leia.
And the way they do that is so good, especially because they have the way she does Leia laughing so hard at the idea of her cooking is so good. It's lovely.
Actually, I do also have to give credit where credit's due. I love the audiobook of this. I love Mark Thompson and Saskia. I don't have the name put up again, but it's a complicated name. But yeah, doing Han and Leia. That last chapter lands on a Han chapter, but because it's the last chapter, they have both of them do it, and they have her read Leia's dialogue in it.
Even in the audiobook, it's Han and Leia, if you remember.
Yeah. Well, no. They still say Han, but they say the. Oh no, I think so.
Yeah, the narrators go Han, still Mark Thompson.
Oh yeah, and they say with thing as Leia. That's right. Yeah. Yeah, very cool. Okay. But yeah, no, I really did love how they did that in the audiobook. It was very nice. But there's that. I believe that's Princess and the Scoundrel. a lovely book. Really, really lovely book. And really just a lovely couple things to watch and read for this particular episode of R2-BD. I love this couple. Who can't love Han and Leia? They're so great to read about and watch about, and just lovely stuff.
Love it. Oh. It's so good. The book kind of peers in the middle, but
it does. Yeah, I think it's not the best thing we've read. I think on the show, but
it's not the best. But I definitely think it's still one of the better suggestions.
Yeah, it's a good time. It's a good time all around. But yeah. All right, let's talk about what we're doing next time, because as I've alluded to far too many times throughout this episode, we're changing the format of R2-BD because there's no format. And there's still not really going to be a format going forward. But instead, what we're going to do, these larger episodes that we do for R2-BD, this one ended up being, like an hour 40-ish? Instead, what we're going to do going forward, I think what we're going to do going forward, is we're going to tackle the things that we cover individually. I think we're going to make slightly shorter, but greater, more robust conversations about the things that we cover. So originally, I think next episode, we can say what we had planned for next episode.
Yeah, I think we could say what we had planned.
Yeah. What we're going to do next time is, because it's coming out right now at the time of recording this, we're going to talk about Skeleton Crew, potentially Season 1? I don't know. We're going to talk about Skeleton Crew, because Skeleton Crew is coming out right now, and it's the current Star Wars TV thing. I was also, for book-wise, because it's my turn on book, I was going to have us read the final book of the Thrawn trilogy with The Last Command by Timothy Zahn. And comic-wise, we're going to read Shattered Empire, the mini-series about also post-Return of the Jedi things. So we're going to do all that. And we're still going to do all that, definitely. We're just going to do them more in individual videos. So I think next for R2-BD, I think you can probably expect our coverage of Skeleton Crew to come up next. And then we'll either do Shattered Empire or Last Command after that. And we'll still sort of keep the chosen pieces of media the same, but we'll just be covering them in individual videos rather than these large lump of videos, so that if you want to find our conversations on a particular topic, you can find that conversation a lot easier on a particular thing that we're covering, and I think that'll lead to just, I think, greater engagement with the show in general, and also, rather than one R2-BD every month or every other month, I think it'll end up being a lot more frequent. So that should be nice
for us to consume and easier to talk about.
Yeah. So be on the lookout for all that when that comes out. We'll see you all with Skeleton Crew next time. As always, I'll leave my link tree down in the description below. You can follow me wherever you want to follow me. As well as Jacob, I'll leave your Blue Sky down in the description as well. My Blue Sky will also be in my link tree. We've kind of left Twitter at this point, so Blue Sky is the place to be. Go to Blue Sky. Also, subscribe to the channel, Blended Studios. Any and all support means the absolute world to us. Thank you all so much for watching. Until next time, this has been Joey Morgan.
I'm Jacob.
Goodbye.